very classic gothic motifs if it were about a TikTok hype house. Nervous because so many people got really upset about certain criticism. Why was this written? Why are there dachshunds everywhere? Hello. Hi. Welcome back to another monthly reading wrap-up. I'm so excited to talk about what I read in September. What a month this has been. I feel like I say this every month, but what a month. I have read some fantastic books. I don't think I read anything that was like really bad. Okay, I have one. Oh, okay. I spoke too soon. I have two that were letdowns, but other than that, brilliant reading month. I feel like I've been kind of a complainer for the past 2 months. I'm here to serve you some really good recommendations. This is also, thank God you cannot see what is going on off screen, chaos in my room because I am packing for my trip to Ireland. I am leaving in 5 days for a month for a very quickly changing season. So I have to pack for like a beginning of autumn and then a almost beginning of winter. Stressed. If you would like to see more of my travel content, as always, I have a vlog channel that I link down below. Carrie Cakes, you can check me out there. Will I be having a meetup in Dublin? Yes. Figuring out those dates. I will post it here in like my community post or whatever. But for more up-to-date notifications, please check my Instagram. I'll also be in Edinburgh. Unsure if I'll have time for a meetup, but I will absolutely be bopping around. I plan to almost exclusively be in bookstores. So I hope I run into some of you guys. Let me know if you are located in either of those places. Another place you can catch some of my travel content is on my website, which leads me to thanking the absolutely wonderful Squarespace. Squarespace is where you can host any kind of online presence. I use them particularly for my blog. So easy to set up. I am not a tech person. A few clicks, you can set up your website with these beautiful free templates. If you're looking to open a shop, for example, they have monetization features, ways to connect your social media accounts. They have a comment section. They have email lists. They have a wonderful analytics section as well. It's really great also if you're looking to create kind of a portfolio, whether it's for your art or your services. If you're a freelancer, definitely check out Squarespace. You can actually go right now to squarespace.com, play with said templates, see what you can make with it. And then when you want to launch it, you can go to squarespace.com/carriecanread to get 10% off your first website or domain. I've used them for years. Actually, I think it's going on a decade. Highly recommend. Loved you always. Squarespace. All that information will be down below. Oh man, wait. Oh, wait, I have physicals. I have not prepared. I'm sorry, it's Sunday. Hold on. I'm back with book number 1. Let's dive right in. So much to cover. So first off, all right, so I said that there were some duds. This is The Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber. As you know, I loved Once Upon a Broken Heart. The Ballad of Never After is one of my favorite books. Like, I had so much fun reading it. I had specifically, and I'll go into it more in another book, I specifically had a lot of fun reading it with you guys. When I do live reading reactions, it tends to almost heighten the experience. So I love Stephanie Garber. I had a fun time with Caraval. I think that her writing style is so unique and whimsical and just full of wonder, and I feel like it either really endears people to her or it really turns people off. It works for me. However, this was one of my fears when reading her first adult novel, is how will her almost childlike sense of wonder translate into an adult novel. I think she's fantastic in writing young adult. I feel like she needs to stay in young adult or really change her style of writing. Alchemy of Secrets is very bizarre. First of all, it takes place in Los Angeles, which I don't know why. Like, I don't enjoy books set in Los Angeles. Part of me, maybe it's just because I'm from San Diego and I'm an LA hater, but like, I don't know. I just, Anyway, so like right off the bat, the setting, But this follows a girl named Holland St. James, who has been raised to believe a lot of these folk tales, these kind of urban legends about Los Angeles. It actually starts off with her trying to sneak into this college course about urban legends of LA, but like to get into the course, it's almost like you have to climb through the cupboard to get to Narnia sort of thing. It's almost like Pirates of the Caribbean, like you can't find the island unless you know it's there. So immediately we're starting off with kind of her signature sense of wonder, but it's like getting into a community college class. Anyway, one of the legends is about a particular figure that knows when you're going to die. And when she stumbles upon this figure, learns her time of death, and when she learned, I think she has 72 hours. Oh, excuse me, she has 48 hours. She has 48 hours to live unless she finds this other urban legend magical object. It's a lot of like hotel bars, and there's this whole thing of like, if you meet the devil in a hotel bar and you buy him this one cocktail, he'll answer. There was just so much going on, but also nothing happened. Let me read you my notes. Oh, I actually wrote a lot. Hold on. I said, I think she bit off a bit more than she could chew. I think her brand of whimsy only works for me in fantasy worlds, not LA. I fucking hate LA, sorry. It got better around 100 pages, but I didn't understand the characters at all. No chemistry. They felt so disconnected. Oh, yeah, okay, so there's this one main character who she loves. She's really close to, she really trusts this person. And then all of a sudden, we learn that this person is potentially trying to kill her, or like, they're in a position that goes against their character, let's just say. There's no sense of betrayal, unless I totally read the book wrong. But I was like, why are we not upset that like one of the people you're closest to is now potentially behind all of the violence you just experienced in the past couple? I felt like Stephanie Garber cared so much about the magic and the whimsy and zoomed out ideas that all the details were not there at all. I'm sure there's an audience for it, but the amount of time, the amount of time she said Art Deco. Our girl was trying to set a scene. She was trying to give this book an aesthetic, and the amount of time she had to tell me that she was in a hotel that was Art Deco. I've seen other versions of this book that have an Art Deco inspired design, and I'm just like, we get it, right? Oh, also, there's a whole second person POV. Actually, I believe the book starts in second person. The wet hits in eager droplets as you dash along the pavement in sandals. Around you, street lamps flicker, a staticky chorus to your damp footfalls. You're not out of breath, but you slow, stopping under a marquee. It's like you don't know for certain. You half expect. You step through the theater door. So that second person POV, which is how we start the book, goes nowhere. Like, actually goes nowhere. I part of me understands why it's in here as just like setting the scene, telling you about the course that she has enrolled in. Why is it in second person? Why are we randomly like, and then in second person we randomly get like articles, there's a screenplay, there's just so much going on, but again, I felt like nothing went on. Did I say anything else? Yeah, that's it. Also, for a girl that just found out she's going to die, she doesn't seem super concerned. I don't know, it was just the most bizarre reading experience. I pulled through only because it was Stephanie Garber, and I wanted to see what was going on, but it was truly, I know there's an audience there, but it was not me, and I don't really know what was going on. I really felt like this was a mood board that had, just like on the cover, it has sparkles, cocktails, and Art Deco hotel bars in LA, and that's what she was working with. And I felt like substance-wise, nothing there, unfortunately. So that's that. Alchemy of Secrets. That's how I started the month, unfortunately. It gets better. After that, girl who doesn't like reading books set in LA reads another book set in LA. This one was just weird. It wasn't a letdown because I went in with no expectations, but it was also not awesome. I promise we're going to get to the good books in a second. This is called If You're Seeing This, It's Meant for You. And I went in knowing absolutely nothing. I knew it was lit fic. I knew there was a rabbit on the cover. So I was sort of like, okay, weird girl book. I'm here for it. It's September. We're inching into spooky season. Let's go. This was so bizarre. This was an attempt at a modern gothic tale. I could feel, I got the references. There was a bit of Rebecca in there. There were all of these very classic gothic motifs. If it were about a TikTok hype house. So, needless to say, as the story is unfolding, I'm like, pardon? What am I reading? We're following a few different characters, but the first character we're introduced to is a woman in, I believe, her mid to late 30s. Her relationship has just crashed and burned. She leaves her job, I believe. She either leaves her job or loses her job. She needs some financial support. So she goes to this man that she knew from her past who is incredibly wealthy. He basically told her like, hey, anytime you need me, pick up the phone. And so she calls him and he's like, actually super weird. I was just needing your help. And she becomes kind of the manager of this hype house because the very rich man owns this mansion. He's from this family of actresses and screenwriters and producers. Just like this house, kind of like Alchemy of Secrets, is sort of an urban legend in and of itself. It's filled with mystery, mostly tragedy, but it is falling to disrepair. The family money is no longer there. And one way to save it is to make it essentially a hype house, a content farm. So he invites, I think it's 6 very strange content creators and have at it. It's a hype house. But in the background, we also have, right before our manager woman arrives, one of the original members of the hype house went missing, and she was a tarot card reader, and she was very famous for, in the TikTok algorithm, she wouldn't put any hashtags. It would just be like, if you see this on your For You page, it was meant for you. You know, that kind of content. That's what she made. So there are all these online sleuths trying to find out what happened to her. Nobody talks about it. Nobody really knows where she went, what's going on. So we're like slightly trying to solve that mystery. This was so bizarre. So like LA, strike 1. A story about content creators, strike 2. I feel like anybody who reads a book where the characters are doing your own day job, you're always going to find inconsistencies, or it's because you have so much personal experience, there's always going to be something wrong with their portrayal of it. And I really felt that. I think she did a pretty good job, but there were just some things that I was like, this was a person who like got on TikTok and studied it for like a couple months, you know? Oh, she also has a pet rabbit. Like, everyone is super weird, and I was kind of waiting for it to be I don't know. There were just so many like really bizarre features. Like there's a weird sexual relationship between the manager and one of the influencers. There's a pet rabbit that she is manically obsessed with, I will say. Wow, my notes are so unhelpful. I literally just wrote, an influencer goes missing and the house is creepy. It was readable. It was absolutely readable because I wanted desperately to know how on earth this was going to wrap up, or like why this story was being told. I don't think the ending got us there. Give it a try maybe, because I know that this author had written a few other works that were received really well, which is why I picked this one up. But so yeah, that is, if you're seeing this, it's meant for you. All right, now we can talk about it. Do I have it here? I keep misplacing my books. Okay, I do have a physical copy of the Jasad Heir. Yeah, we're going to talk about it. So imagine I'm holding it. I read the Jasad Heir and the Jasad Crown. It is a fantasy duology. I will call it a romantasy, and you will see why when I talk about the second book. And I did a live reading reaction to it while I was in the throes of a weird health issue. So if you're going to watch that video, just know I'm not on top of my game, let's just say. Yeah, it was a fun reading experience. The Jasad Heir is an Egyptian-inspired romantasy. It's a duology. It's finished. In this world, we have multiple kingdoms. Originally, all of the kingdoms had magic until slowly it faded until only one kingdom contained magic. But that kingdom, specifically its monarchy, was attacked, the royal family was killed, and now any member of that kingdom, the Jasad kingdom, any Jasadi, is imprisoned and likely put to death, okay? Magic has been outlawed since then. But what if one member of the royal family survived? And what if she accidentally uses magic in front of her mortal enemy, the head of the neighboring kingdom, who she believes was in charge of killing her family? And what if he decides to use her as bait to try and capture any other Jasadi groups that are in hiding? That is the Jasad Heir. So yes, we follow our princess Silvia, or Essia. She has two names because she's in hiding. And she accidentally gets roped into this whole plot to try and get these two Jasadi rebel groups to come and basically try to either kidnap her or kill her, depending on which rebel group gets to her first. And the heir of Nizal, the neighboring kingdom, is basically just using her as bait. There technically is like a competition and a trial aspect to it. That just seemed thrown in there for no reason. And then we have the Jasad crown, which follows, I don't want to spoil anything, but it continues the story, okay, as a sequel often does. Here's the thing. If you are reading this for the romance, great. And I say this with love because if you watch my video, you know I had fun reading this, so don't get it twisted. I enjoyed reading this. However, I feel like you cannot deny that that is the only plot thread that got tied into a nice little bow. Every other detail of this book was kind of left shaking around in the wind. In terms of the side characters, I think specifically the second book, I hesitate to talk about it because honestly, I've seen people getting really upset about criticism for this book. And so I just really want to say I had fun reading it. But looking back, there are just so many things that I think the second book kind of failed at. The first book I thought was really fun. I do think that the trials and everything just, again, kind of felt like it was there for the plot, like just so we had something to do. But in terms of the characters, I really like the side characters. I loved the banter. When I say, like, this is enemies to lovers where we are on the last page of the first book and they are still trying to kill each other. Excellent. Their little quips at each other were so good. The first book was great. Is the magic system ever explained? Absolutely not. How the entire plot revolves around magic and yet we don't know anything about the magic system? Yeah, that's weird. But you get over it because the characters were strong. So then we get to the second book, and I feel like the author knew where she wanted our two main characters to end up, but didn't really know what to do with everyone else, because I really felt like all of our side characters, specifically if you've read the first book, Merrick and any of the guards, specifically Jeru, I felt like they were sent on these random literal side quests just to give them something to do. Like, this was a book that had multiple POVs. If you take out Merrick's POV, be honest, what changes? Absolutely nothing in that plot change. So it felt like the second book had a lot of filler. It was 200 pages longer than the first book. If you read it only focused on the romance, you're gonna be satisfied. If you think too hard about, like, randomly, like, we had a couple characters that get introduced and then just get like one scene. Like, there's a whole, oh my god, there's a whole scene of like trying to save this random girl from the first book. We get like 2 chapters, I think, dedicated to helping this girl when, like, it was funny. It was a funny scene, but okay. And like it felt like a lot of the book I felt like okay and which was such a bummer. So I will say, if you are looking for a romantasy and your main focus is the romance, the Jasad Heir was great. The Jasad Heir was fun. I enjoyed it. I really liked specifically our 2 main characters. If you're looking for really strong world building, if you're looking for all of the plot threads to be tied up, if you're looking for a magic system that is explained more than just like your magic can fade and then you need time to grow it back up. Like, we randomly got like names of people who have magics. There's a moment in the second book where we are told some of these names, like, oh, this person is a bone reader or something like that. Like, we get it for, it's thrown in there, so we know that there's allegedly some system of categorization for magic people, but it seems completely random. We also, it's very off the page of when our girl learns to use her magic, so she goes from not having any control of her magic to being really powerful over the course of a chapter. Kind of. We see her practice like once and then it's like, boom, baby, she's back. It was just a lot of like, the details were missing, but the vibes were there. I feel like this is kind of a mess of a review because honestly, I am very nervous because so many people got really upset about certain criticisms, and I want it to be known that I had a good time and I still recommend it if you like romantasy, but I do think we have to be fair and recognize that the second book was meandering for no reason at times, and I did see the ending coming from very far away, and it's one of my least favorite kinds of endings. So yeah, the Jasad Heir, still give it a try, simply for the banter. If you want new ways to tell somebody that you wish them harm in an affectionate way, this is great. This is great. But yeah, the Jasad Heir and the Jasad Crown, a confusing experience, but one that at the time I enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts because I know a lot of you were asking me to read it. Let me know down below. That is the Jasad Heir. The next book I read had a similar problem to the Jasad Crown of only tying up one of the many threads, but I was okay with it. So next up, I read The Possession of Alba Diaz. I think I have now read officially every work by Isabel Cañas. This one's my favorite. This one's my favorite, even though I have critiques. The Possession of Alba Diaz, how do I explain this? It is multiple POV. On one hand, we follow Alba Diaz, who is a girl who is going to be married off, and she really doesn't want to be married off to some random stranger, so she orchestrates an engagement with her close childhood friend, who also happens to be the heir to the silver mine that her father has invested money in. So it makes sense. He's not like a totally random choice. He's maybe not the best choice, but she's engaged. She's happy about it. It's platonic, but could it grow to love? Absolutely. Seems like everything's working out for her. The plague hits. They are living in Mexico. The plague, or, you know, some kind of horrible fever, hits their town. So they decide, both families, the fiancés, go to the silver mine, which is in a very remote place. There's not a whole lot of people. It's up in the mountains. The fever's not going to get them there. So they essentially are quarantining themselves. They are social distancing at the silver mine. Once she gets up there, things immediately start to feel strange. She starts to see things. She starts to hear things. Everything is just odd, and the landscape is just desolate. Like, it is icy cold desert where all you have is just this hole in the ground, which is the silver mine. And I have learned, I've always loved this word, but I feel like it just came up so often in what I was reading this month. But I love when people describe something as a maw, and I don't know why. Like, saying it out loud doesn't feel the same, but when I read it about like a gaping maw, like using that word as a mouth when you're talking about like a cave or a doorway or something, this, like, I don't know why, but she used that word a couple times and I was just like, oh, it feels like hot and moist and scary, and I love it. So anyway, just literally words on the page. The prose, fantastic, eerie, gross. Okay, we've got a creepy priest. We've got a cousin of her fiance that shows up who has a suspicious past, perhaps, but also, why is there romance blossoming with him? Why does she feel certain ways with him and not her fiance? And what happens when her sleepwalking doesn't seem like normal sleepwalking anymore? And what happens when people start to turn up dead? Overall, just really had a good time with it. I will say, however, again, there was only really one thread of the plot that was tied up. I don't want to give any spoilers. There's just a lot of really weird family stuff that never gets tied up. Like, there's so many in like classic Gothic literature. Everyone is creepy. Every person is creepy, cannot be trusted, is weird. And I wish we learned about why, especially like Alba Diaz's family background, and then this mysterious cousin Elias. He also has like a really kind of traumatic storyline, and I wanted answers. So I will say it could leave you a little bit unsatisfied in terms of answering all of your questions. In terms of just telling us a creepy story about a girl who gets possessed, I ate it up. I read it, I think, in one day. And that is The Possession of Alba Diaz. Okay, next up, Alchemy of Secrets was my first highly anticipated book that was a letdown. This is my next one, and I'm so sad to talk about it. I have a lot of notes. The Bewitching by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. On paper, tale as old as time. I feel like this has just been my curse for the past 2 years. Premise. Written for me. Okay. The Bewitching follows 3 different women in 3 different timelines. They are all dealing with a curse or, you know, some eerie stuff is going down in all 3 timelines. How are they connected? Also, just like the time and setting of each POV is a time and setting that I'm very much interested in. Rural Mexico in the 1900s, like I think the early 1900s. We have semi-present day at a small liberal arts college campus. And then we have the same liberal arts college campus, but in the 60s? Maybe I've got that all wrong, but just know that whatever the truth is, I was interested in all 3 of those POVs. I was so on board. Premise, excellent. Okay. I loved the first 20%. There were things that I was like, I'm sure this will get resolved later, so I'm not going to think too hard about it that I don't like this, but overall, loved 20%. And then, let me just read you my notes. Number 1 is the villains in this story were so obvious that I couldn't tell if they were supposed to be obvious. Like, there was no mystery to this book, which is weird because the book is about solving a mystery of a missing girl. So the second one character walks on the page, I am like, villain, bad person. That's whodunit, you know? And there are like multiple villains. All of the villains were obvious from the very first page, and I just couldn't tell if that was intended because it made our characters feel so naive, especially our present day character. She's supposed to be quite smart and intelligent. She's a graduate student. She's working on her dissertation. She's an intelligent, strong woman. And yet, because she can't see what's right in front of her, she felt so naive and silly to me. And I felt the same way with the other POVs where people were like not computing that the people that they're interacting with are harming them. So again, I couldn't tell if that was intentional or not because as a reader, I really didn't like that. Also, this isn't a spoiler. I know that this author is really inspired by Gothic literature. She wrote Mexican Gothic, for example. And so this is a theme prevalent in all of her books. And I know it's just a theme in Gothic literature, but I hate incest. Is that controversial? I just don't like reading about it. And this is like 2 of the 3 books I've read by her that veer into incestual relationships. You know, just not something that I need to read about. If I'm going to choose, you know, again, mostly my fault because a Gothic tale does love a taboo relationship, but just not for me, really. So that was kind of strike 2. Strike 3 was we had weird, pointless characters. I couldn't tell if it felt like these characters were put in there to throw us off the scent of the very obvious villains. But the villains are so obvious that it's like, why are they there? Like, either make your villain less of a villain so that we're surprised and we might think like, that person's suspicious, or just don't throw this random person in there. Like, there's one character in particular who has no reason to be there, honestly, other than to potentially make us think like, I don't trust them. So that just kind of frustrated me. Every time that character came on the page, I was like, what are they doing here? Go away. Like, you're making this story long for no reason. And then, yeah, there was just sort of this lack of emotion. There are a few character deaths. I felt like our women, other than the one POV of the friend of the girl that goes missing, she had emotion, but I felt like our two other characters, big things would happen and they'd just kind of be like, and again, they were not seeing these villains right in front of them, so they felt really naive. It was just, yeah, a really frustrating read, and I felt like, especially from 40% on, I was so bored, and I shouldn't have been, because again, that premise had so much potential. I was really, really bummed by it because, like I said, I loved the first 20%, and then our characters just became so bland and boring, no tension. What a bummer. Let me know, because I know a lot of you guys were wanting to read that. Were any of you equally let down, or did you like it? And did I just read it in the wrong headspace? Let me know your thoughts. But that was the Bewitching by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. Oh, do I have it? That would be too easy. That would be too easy. Okay, once again, I don't know where my physical copy is, but 2 months ago, I read Bittersweet in the Hollow, which is a young adult fantasy set in Appalachia, and it was so deliciously summer. Like, it was such a summer book. She just got it down, like the sounds of the insects, the food you were eating. Like, she captured summer. So when the sequel came out and it was supposed to take place in autumn, I waited until September, and I'm so glad that I did. So Lies on the Serpent's Tongue. We are in the same town as Bittersweet in the Hollow, and we're just a month after everything that happened in Bittersweet. So we're following a different sister. All of these sisters have magical powers. No one else in the town does. For some reason, this family has always had like one weird thing. Each woman in the family has some strange gift. They own a diner in town, and Bittersweet in the Hollow followed the kind of Appalachian urban legend of the Mothman. And without spoilers, we kind of continue through that into this book. So I can't say too much about the plot, but we're essentially following the sister who can sense lies. She can like taste if you're lying. And for some reason, she volunteers to work on the like fixing up the fire watch station deep in the woods, in the mountains. So a lot of it is just her being alone in a cabin on the top of a mountain, which is creepy in and of itself. But again, it's a sequel, so I can't go too far into what it's about. But I will say that my complaint about Bittersweet in the Hollow was immaculate vibes, loosey-goosey plot. Loosey-goosey plot. This book, 100% on the vibes, loosier-goosier plot. This was even more like, what is actually going on? It seemed like we were making magic rules up on the spot. Without spoilers, in this book, something is amiss in town where people are losing their memories. And I said that nothing felt important because everything was really surface level. It was 300 pages. I honestly feel like it could have or should have been more because we didn't have enough time to accomplish anything in this book. It was really, yeah. So if you're looking for a book that is autumnal vibes with a touch of magic, it delivers that. If you're looking for a plot that makes sense and is thrilling, I don't think this is the book. So it wasn't unreadable. I read it on one of those days that it still felt like summer. So I was just feeling like hot and lazy and wishing it was autumn. So it did the job for that. Accomplished something for me, but overall kind of a letdown. But she can write these atmospheres so well. That is Lies on the Serpent's Tongue. Okay, gang. After that, I read a romantasy that has been talked about so much. I've never heard a negative thing. I almost bought it in an airport bookstore because the wait at the library for it was so long. I'm glad I held out. I'm glad I waited for the library book, and I will tell you why. This is In the Veins of the Drowning. This is a adult romantasy. It is about sirens and siren hunters. So Overall, I thought the world was really interesting. We are following our main girl, who is the like adopted ward of the king of this one kingdom. And this kingdom happens to kill sirens. That is their shtick. They don't like sirens, they kill them. Everyone else, all the other surrounding kingdoms, fine with sirens. And our story starts at the engagement party of our main girl. She has been promised to like the head general, basically, of her kingdom's military. Seems to be actually a kind of okay guy. She's like, you know what? I can make this work. I can make this work. I'm not happy about it, but I can make this work. That is until we learn something very important about our main character, which is that she is secretly a siren. Yeah. So when that gets discovered, she needs to get the fuck out. And luckily, because it's an engagement party, other royals happen to be in town, and she convinces one of the princes to sweep her away to his kingdom where she can be safe. And then we learn kind of more about the religion, like all of the gods and things like that. There are these creatures that are hunting sirens, and like it's cool. I give it that. World is cool, concept is cool. I will just say the romantasy core of this book revolves around essentially a mating bond. It is a magical blood bond that of course makes the bonded have to be close to each other, and they're in pain unless they're together. And of course the best way to get rid of the pain is if they are intimate with each other. But our main two characters hate each other, don't they? So it's a lot of just forced proximity and like every trope that has to do with the mating bond kind of thing. So if you're someone who doesn't love that like destined, forced, bonded kind of vibe, you won't enjoy this because that's really what this whole first book is about. I was fine with it. I thought it kind of lost momentum. It kind of had this like first book of a series syndrome where the ending just gets chaotic so that you can be thrown into the second book, but the chaos kind of lost me. The ending was so just like, whoa, there's so much going on. It was fine. Like if you like a kind of bonded, fated mates situation, solid book. I appreciated that the world building and the lore was strong. I don't think I'm going to continue it because I'm not a huge fan of that trope. I understand the hype. I'm just not exactly the intended audience, but that is in the veins of The Drowning. But then I dove into another siren story, and this one was so interesting. Not a perfect book, but I actually had a really good time with it. This is called When the Tides Held the Moon, and I actually loved this simply because it was so unique. Weird fun fact about me, I love reading about the late 1800s in New York City specifically. For example, The Alienist was one of kind of the first adult books I ever read, and I really loved it. Everyone always recommends The Diviners to me. I have read the first book of the Diviners series, loved. I don't know why I didn't continue it. This Ravenous Fate, that's a little bit later in New York history, but gimme that. Like late 1800s, early 1900s New York City. Thank you. So we are in turn of the century, New York City. I believe this is technically the 1910s, okay? We are following a blacksmith / engineer from Puerto Rico. He writes it like when he pronounces it in like white people speak versus how he would say it in Spanish. So it's Puerto Rico, but he sometimes just writes it Porto. So Puerto Rico. Anyway, yeah, he's Puerto Rican, and he has moved to New York City following the death of his grandmother, who was kind of the last of his family, and she wanted him to have a better life. So he goes off to New York to not really have a better life. He's kind of flailing, hates the people he works with, just like going through the motions, not having a great time. When someone comes into his blacksmithing shop, requesting a really specific item, which is essentially a giant aquarium, but on wheels, so it can be mobile. And he is an artist, so he takes these plans and just elevates them, makes this incredible thing. And when the customer comes to pick it up, he realizes that he has built something for, they call it a sideshow. It's essentially like a circus. Some people would call it a freak show on Coney Island in Brooklyn. So we've got, you know, the super strong man, we've got the fat bearded lady, we've got the conjoined twins, a contortionist, and they're really impressed with his work. So they like kind of give him their card and he's like, I don't want anything to do with these weird Coney Island people. Coincidentally, he gets injured at work, needs a job, and goes to see what they can do for him. And what do you think they're trying to put in that aquarium? They're gonna go catch a mermaid. This is dual POV. We again follow our engineer, but we also follow the merman, the siren that we capture as they kind of develop a relationship. And I really liked it. I think that it's a very different pace than like if you're going into this wanting like a romantasy or something like that. It's really paced differently. There were portions of it that even though there's so much suffering in the book, like the whole book is about suffering, there were moments that felt almost like a cozy fantasy because the conversations that our two characters would have would be about like identity and love and belonging, and the way, especially the way that the merman speaks, it just is very comforting. And I don't know, it had this like really interesting feeling to it. There is a found family, there are gangsters, it's Brooklyn in the 1910s. I mean, it was a really strange setting, but I really just enjoyed, like I left the story feeling like, you know, I will say check the triggers. There's nothing on page, but there is mention of sexual assault, very brief, like blink and you miss it, but it's there. Yeah, I don't know, there was just something about it that I really liked. It definitely read, I think, a little younger, even though there is definitely talk about how can a human and a merman have relations, and it gets a little technical, but it did read a little younger. But overall, I left it feeling nice. I left it feeling like, oh, that was a wonderful, cute little story. And it's illustrated. I forgot to mention, it's illustrated, which was really fun. And I believe the author is the illustrator as well. So, yeah, just overall, like a good story. That is When the Tides Held the Moon. I'm so excited to talk about the next books. I did a reread of a book I loved from last year, if not 2 years ago, in order to read the sequel that came out. This is the strangest series. This is an urban fantasy, and I feel like my complaints usually with fantasy books is that they're getting too long in a way that I feel like these books have a lot of filler to them. And I wish we could have edited it down so that it was more concise and hard-hitting. These books, I'm begging for them to be longer. I'm begging you. Look at this little guy. I reread When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. Have I read Divergent? No, I have not. When Among Crows, however, I read this in whenever it came out. This is an urban fantasy. Veronica Roth, fun fact, all of her books take place in Chicago. So this takes place in Chicago, and it is based off of Polish or just Slavic in general folklore, where we have our main character who is trying to break a curse. And we don't really understand why he needs to break this curse, who he is even. He just kind of shows up and he's like, I've got this magical flower thing. And he comes into contact with a witch and essentially a vampire. Like, again, this is based on Polish folklore, so they have different terms, but actually he's not a vampire. He turns into an owl. He's like a strigo. Anyway, this was so fun. I really liked this book. I loved the characters. I loved her writing in it. Tell me why it's less than 200 pages. It is 160 pages long. Why? Okay. So then I reread that so that I could read the sequel, To Clutch a Razor. Slightly thicker. I think this is exactly 100 pages longer. Oh no, it's still only like 220 pages. This continues the story. We're in Chicago. We're also in Poland for a bit of it. Again, I really liked this, but it feels like I'm reading chapters, or I'm reading hunks of a book that I love. Like, for example, there are certain books like Six of Crows. I could pick that up, open it to any page, And like if I was on an airplane, I could just read a chunk of it no matter where and just really enjoy a bit of it. I don't need to read the book from start to finish. That's kind of what this feels like. It feels like this is part of a larger novel and I'm just kind of picking it up and reading a really good section. It flows naturally. Like it doesn't feel like how do I explain this? I just wish it were longer, but I also don't because it fits everything in there. It's just a really strange experience where it has exactly what it needs, but I want more. Does that make sense? Yeah, we have great platonic friendship. We have this weird romance that there's not a whole lot. It's not steamy. There's not a whole lot of it on the page, but they have just a couple lines in there that you're just like, oh. So it's just really good. I wish I could describe it better. If you like knights and witches and family betrayal and yeah, I think also, this one, without giving too much away, I think that this one's really interesting, especially in the kind of political atmosphere that we're in now, where we're having a lot of people having to come to terms with the ideologies that they've been raised with and their families that are still believing in those ideologies. So for example, I've been seeing on my For You page a lot of people who were raised within a kind of Zionist household breaking from that ideology and unlearning and trying to reckon with the fact that their family believes these harmful things. Or a lot of people are like blue pilling themselves and basically trying to unbrainwash themselves from the kind of far right rhetoric that they might have been raised with, stuff like that. It talks a lot about that, like how hard it is to love your family, but also know that your family is holding really harmful beliefs. And how do you reckon with that? And what do you do? And I think that it handled this really well in here. That is To Clutch a Razor. If you haven't read When Among Crows and To Clutch a Razor yet, please do so because I had such a good time. And I read them back to back because total, it's still under 400 pages. It was just quick to read and fun, and I really like the characters. And again, like just enough to make you want more. That is When Among Crows, To Clutch a Razor by Veronica Roth. Aha! And then we got back-to-back baddies. Yeah. Yeah. So this is Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. This is a prequel to Divine Rivals. I enjoyed Divine Rivals, hated Ruthless Vows. Divine Rivals is a duology. It's set in it's supposed to feel like a World War II kind of setting, like a 1940s kind of setting, but it's a war between gods. It's hard to explain. All right. Divine Rivals, great. The second book, not good, in my opinion. So when I heard that Wild Reverence was a prequel to Divine Rivals, I was a little let down because, like I said, didn't enjoy that duology, unfortunately. This is so different. Guys, I cannot express to you. You don't need to know anything about Divine Rivals to read this. There is an epilogue. The very last page has a little Easter egg for Divine Rivals. Will it change anything about your experience? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You don't need to read Divine Rivals to read this. This felt like Juliet Marie. And I posted about that on Instagram and TikTok, and people let me know that in interviews, Rebecca has said that Juliet Marie is an inspiration of hers. Girly nailed it. This felt like I was reading an old folk tale. This is about a goddess who falls in love with a human that she accidentally somehow shows up in his dreams when they're little, and they just continue to grow and feel this connection even though they're never really in each other's lives. They've literally only met once, and fate just keeps kind of bringing them close and then not quite, and then close and then not quite. I really like this. However, this is about gods, and a lot of these characters are immortal, and so there's a lot of betrayal. Their understanding of time is a little warped. So I feel like some people who don't really love or haven't read a lot of mythology might be like, these characters are so flim-flam and strange. You've just got to know that these are gods and they're not operating like humans. But yeah, I I really enjoyed this. I do think looking back, it felt like the tiniest bite out of the story and I wanted so much more, but I think that that is okay. Like it did its job, it told its story. I just wish it told even more of it, if that makes sense. And I think that that's a compliment to this. Similar to When Among Crows, it's like, yes, you gave me exactly what I asked for, but I would like more, please. Sort of feeling. I don't know how else to really describe it. There is romance, but a lot of it is just them, fate not letting them be together. A lot of it is just focused on our main girl, our goddess, who is trying to navigate this world of ruthless gods. I really enjoyed this. So if you liked her writing style, if you like Juliette Marie, read it. This isn't a spoiler, but I heard people talk about how devastating this ending was. And it kind of made me not want to read it. I was like, I need to be in the right headspace to read something that has such a sad ending. No, you might cry, but you'll cry because it's beautiful. I don't think that's a spoiler. That's literally just like, you don't need to be mentally in a good spot to read. Well, I mean, you should. I mean, I feel like you should do that for every book. But yeah, don't be frightened by the idea of like a tragic, heartbreaking ending that's gonna mess you up. Okay? Read it. Wild Reverence, Rebecca Ross. Highly recommend. Next up, I don't even know why I'm talking about this book. Really quickly, I read this book called Julius Julius. I saw it recommended on just like books that were odd, books that were unlike anything you've ever read before. So Julius Julius, it says that it's 300 pages. Most pages have one sentence on them. So I read this in maybe like an hour or two. Real short. We have 3 POVs. We are following different people who work for an advertising agency that has worked in advertising since like ancient Rome. So a lot of it is just talking about advertising and what is marketing. And you know what? I just didn't like it. I didn't like it. I enjoyed the first 100 pages, which I essentially read 100 sentences, let's say. And then I finished it just to figure out what was going on. Like, are we heading towards anything? Why was this written? Why are there dachshunds everywhere? Yeah, there are like golden long-haired dachshunds running around. And I don't really know why it was written, and I don't really know where we ended up. So that's my feelings on Julius Julius. Bah, you know? And last but not least, let's wrap this up, okay? Last book I read, literally finished it last night. I read Thorn Season by Kira Azar. This is a debut romantasy, and it was fine. We are following a girl who is a wielder, which means that she can perform magic. And for some reason in her kingdom, not allowed. You are hunted, literally the word is hunted. You are hunted and killed for being a wielder. Similar to In the Veins of the Drowning, surrounding kingdoms, you can be a wielder. You can be free. Okay, it's fine. Magic's okay. In this kingdom, no. So our main girl is obviously a wielder in secret, and luckily but unluckily for her, she was actually born into the official wielder hunter family. Like, there is one family in charge of hunting magic people, and she is a member of that family because her dad fell in love with her mother, who was a wielder. Bada bing, bada boom. Good and bad, because good, what family member would suspect their own family of being the people that they hunt? But bad is that she's literally in the house with magic hunters all the time. But she ends up getting wrapped up in this really messy situation in which the magical object that the hunters use to find magic people gets stolen. And so now she doesn't even know who her enemy is, right? Like, at least she could be like, oh, my aunt would never use the magic compass to see if I'm magic. But now these rando people who stole the compass could point the finger at her at any time. So she's basically trying to hunt the hunters before they hunt her. A lot of moving parts. I say that this was fine because there was really nothing about this book that was new to me. It just kind of felt like something that I've read before, but it wasn't bad, if that makes sense. I didn't really get the romance. I didn't really get this kind of love triangle we were trying to set up. This is the first in a series, and the only reason I want to continue the series is because there are 2 side characters that I know are gonna fall in love, and one of them is like constantly blushing and fumbling with her words whenever the other princess is nearby, and I'm like, I want to read that, but nothing else really, unfortunately. I would say still read it if you're looking for a book like that. But it felt like I have read it before, you know? But that is Thorn season. I will also say that this felt really small. Like everything takes place in basically like 2 locations. So I couldn't really visualize the world, I guess is my issue. Like we were either in the palace or we were in her manor. There were a couple times when we were in the village. And so it just kind of felt like we were being moved from like room to room to room. And I wanted to spread out, if that makes sense. So yeah, not that. Like as a debut, I didn't really have any complaints other than it just didn't feel really original. And that's fine. So that's Thorn season. Give it a go if that sounds up your alley. So anyway, that's what I read in September as I embark. Oh, I'm also reading. I've been chipping away at Say Nothing, which is a nonfiction book about the Troubles in Northern Ireland. And that's been fascinating, just to kind of prep for my trip. Crazy stuff in there. But yeah, I've been like literally reading like 5 pages a night. So I'm not even close to halfway done. But if you're looking for a nonfiction book about Ireland, or if you just want some more ammunition to talk shit about the British, because Jesus Christ, the stuff in that, I'm flabbergasted. Okay. Yeah. Say Nothing. Really interesting. And I think they made a TV series of it. I could be wrong, but when I was looking up something else, that showed up. So you could also watch it, I think. I'm not sure. Don't quote me. That's what's been going on. Prepping for Ireland. So next month, who knows? I already know what 2 romance books I'm going to read on the plane to Ireland. So stoked. October already looks really great. I will say that my posting schedule might be a little bit different because I will be in Ireland, kind of for work, honestly. Like I have 2 back-to-back tours that I'm hosting. So I won't be able to make as much content in October, but I hope that in November I will have a lot of fun stuff for you. And again, I will be posting all my trip stuff on Carrie Cakes. So there will be like bookshops and stuff going on my other channel. But yeah, just in case I go MIA for a few weeks, I'm in Ireland. So yeah, thank you so much. Let me know your thoughts on, I know I had some controversial takes. Let me know how you're feeling about that, what you've been reading. And I will see you guys whenever I see you. I'm going to attempt to read an Irish rom-com in Ireland. That's like my one plan, if I get like a day to myself. So we'll see. But yeah, so anyway, I will catch you guys later. Thank you as always for being here. Thank you again to Squarespace. Once again, all that information in the description box, but you can go to squarespace.com/carriecanread to get 10% off your first website or domain. So many uses. Check it out. See what you can do with it. I'm gonna go. Lunchtime. Kurt is blowing up my phone. Trying to figure out what we're gonna eat. Yes, I will see you guys as soon as I can, and can't wait to share all the bookstores that I hit. I'll be on Instagram. I'll be around. Okay. So we'll see you then. Okay. But thank you always. Catch you later. Bye.